She's not in here right now, but if you know Kismet's art, you immediately think of the beautiful glittering lines. And I think that this is a really interesting parallel we can draw here into her style and see, what that looks like in the this postmodern era that we live in right now. And so this is just something that stood out to me from the piece, and I hope that Masterpiece or Glenn comes into the space soon so that we can talk to him about this one specifically. But I wanted to kind of throw it over to Flor, say good morning, and kind of ask you what you think about when you look at this piece by Henry Matisse.
Hey, good morning, everybody. And yeah, I've been taking a look at it, and what's really been striking me about Fauvism or Fauvism or however the hell we want to pronounce it, I don't think it really matters, but when we're talking about it, it stands out to me that the obvious one is the color. So I want to push past the obvious part, and I really want to talk about the relationship between people and landscapes because those are the two main focuses that I see a lot in Fauvist art is the landscape and usually people. And it's interesting because this one has elements of both, and the we see the consistent theme of art and artists exploring the human body and the human composition and masculinity versus femininity. And I see a lot of that in here too. And it's interesting because the Fauvists, from everything I've seen, they typically try to portray the color different from what its actual representation is. And in this particular picture, we see that, but we don't see it as much as I've seen it in other pieces, and especially other Henri Matisse pieces. So you see these women uh, are pink and white, and there's one of them that is yellow and one of them that's a little red, and those are all like pretty decently accurate representations that we've seen of people before, and even some of the background. But what strikes me about this is that the rest of it, it's the shapes are different. It's what the gaps in which it's filling in are orange. On that left hand side you see a lot of what would be open air is orange, and I think that the color composition is really what I'm still like learning and focusing on. And I think that when we look at Henri Matisse and we look at these different pieces from the Fauvists, they're breaking even their own rules for that sense of just trying to figure out how this works. And it really does feel a little bit like a mix between expressionism and impressionism. Impressionism being something that I've studied a little bit, expressionism I haven't touched as much, but I know the general outline being that it's less about the form and the function and more about using shape and color to express how you feel. And like when I look at Mojica, aka Mr. Scribbles, that's very expressionist. You know what I'm saying? And it's not. It's very much like intentionally used to express, and he's talked about that openly about the catharsis aspect of art. And so I kind of learn a little bit about expressionism through looking at his art and that style, even if it's not intentional. And that's not, I'm not trying to put him in a box and categorize him. But when I look at it, that's what I get. When I hear the stories and hear the artists talk about that work, that's what I'm getting. And I know the focus, and I know he's told me what his MO is, and it's about art coming from the heart and feeling it. And I think when I look at Fauvism, I see a lot of that as well coming through with the color, and they're breaking their own rules. They're doing their own thing, and it's very experimental. And I love that experimentation. And it's really interesting from my perspective as somebody who is starting to learn that experimentation is a great foundation with which I can explore and move forward and learn so that I can build up to something a little bit closer to, maybe realism or whatever it is that I'm trying to do. I do want to go forward and do some of the more finer aspects like we see a lot of people do in this ecosystem. And it's just fun to learn. And this is a great and interesting place to start because they're breaking not only the rules of the time, but also the rules in which they set out. And I think that that's very important for any creative individual. And I've talked about this a lot. We love to think outside of the box. So to be able to think outside of the box sometimes I put myself in the box so that I can then work my way out. And instead of it being this like Sisyphean, I have to push this boulder up the hill over and over again, I actually take enjoyment of thinking my way out of the box, because every single time I have to build a better box to get out of, or I have to work on a skill that I have to build it up. And so I really think that with Fauvism and with color and with shape and with form, it's definitely a great place to start, because it does just kind of shatter all the rules. And you really can learn, just as they say, but before you break the rules, you're supposed to learn them. You can do it in reverse. And I think some people do think in reverse. Sometimes you can learn the rules by just outright breaking them and then putting the pieces back together and seeing, oh, okay, this is why this is a rule. So if you're the type of learner who does enjoy that process of just breaking it and doing what you want from the beginning, and your end goal is to end up with a form, that is also an accurate and legitimate avenue. And I think Fauvism is, for me and from where I'm at in my journey, I think it's a great place to start if you are that type of person, because I am having to stretch my brain a little bit as I'm kind of going back and forth in between, like, okay, well, this is the master, and this is the okay, the impressionists were doing this, and Baroque art is doing this. Okay, I understand some of this, and then all of a sudden it's like, all right, let's do Cubism. Okay, let's do Fauvism. Okay, it's breaking those rules, and then I get to learn about what the rules actually are. So take heart in that. I think that when we are on this learning process, I really do want to keep that same energy of like, we can talk about it the traditional way, and then we can also talk about it in the reversed order, in the mirrored way. So learning from the ground up and also learning from breaking down. And I think both of those are equally valid. And I think that if art had been talked about like that from the beginning, there would be a lot more harmony in between people in the artistic communities and artistic thought processes, because everybody agrees that art is subjective, it's expressive of the individual, and I agree with all of that. But at the same time, there are also people, and I share some of those views of like, I like doing things in a set way, in a set order. And I think both can be true at the same time. Why not? Why limit yourself to one singular avenue of like, I only ever want to break the rules, or I only ever want to do things by the book? We should be able to do and paint and mix the colors a little bit in between the two, because I think that ability is what actually makes us unique. It's what makes our art unique. It's what makes our lives unique. When we learn rules and we break rules and we break rules and then we learn a rule because we broke it. And I love that little interplay and that little back and forth. So tying all that back into the Fauvist aspect, that's what is happening to my brain when I'm having to figure out like, okay, I want to paint this tree green, but like I'm not supposed to paint it green. So hot pink it is. All right, here we go. Or blue. All right, here we go. Blue. Let's do that. And it is very fun. And I have had a lot of fun bending it just a little bit. So that's what I wanted to throw out there. I think we're supposed to look at it from both angles and have a little bit of fun with it. And Fauvism has been a really great way for me to learn and also still have fun. And that little stair step of learn a little bit, have a little fun with it, learn a little bit, have a little fun with it, is exactly what keeps us moving forward, in my opinion.
I have a couple of things I want to add to this. First, I wanted to talk about the colors that you were bringing up, because you do see that stark contrast in the way that this piece is broken down specifically. You can see on the top left is more red, on the top right is more green. Those are complementary colors. You see the top of the canvas has the purple background, the bottom has the yellow, but it also is sandwiched between this deep blue, which complements the oranges, and so on and so forth. And so it's really interesting the way that the color play is working on like this complementary level. But you're right, there is a lot of sections where it's broken. You see more of the muted greens, like like right next to its color versus like this hotter versus lighter pinks. And I just think you're right. Like this is the element that we're supposed to play in. And whenever we think about like understanding the box, you can be outside of the box all the time, but it is also important to know, okay, well, what's in the box that I'm not paying attention to that way, or that I don't want to incorporate. That way you kind of know what the counterbalance of that is. What is the complement to that? Because everything that's outside of the box is a complement to what's inside. future. We've gone deep into all of that conversation in the past fine art cult spaces, and we've touched on it a little bit yesterday as well. But I really think that there's something bigger going on right now. I feel it energetically. Like I feel like these art pieces that we're creating, we're all on this precipice of a big breakthrough. And do I know what that looks like? No, not really. But I feel it culminating. I feel that momentum still, and it feels like it's coming in this direction. I just wanted to invite some people up to kind of talk about if they've had a breakthrough experience before, so you can share it because that might be the thing that's inciting it in others.
And while that's going on, while we're waiting for people to come up, so again, if you've got that moment, if you have like the thing that stands out to you, and I think we all have that in every avenue, and it can come from the smallest, tiniest, most seemingly insignificant source, but every single one of us has that moment. We're like, holy shit, oh my God, it's happened. Oh, I figured it out. This is the thing. This is the thing I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. This is what I've been missing. Every single one of us has that. And that is a beautiful moment. And I really think that I really want to talk about the aspects, at least for me, of what causes breakthroughs. Because we talked a lot about resistance in the past. And like last week, we all had like, okay, what happens when you meet resistance? And we got all the answers without treading too much of that old ground. One of the ways that I have breakthroughs is whenever I meet resistance, and it's an internal resistance. Specifically, a specific example is cubism, right? And I've said this before, that before last week, I couldn't give two fucks. I've said that 1,000 times, but when it got brought up in a more academic sense, I was like, okay, I guess I could fucking learn about this. And then, I had that resistance already internalized and I switched it on its head. And in doing so, I opened up the doors and therefore the resistance was gone. Once, sometimes that resistance doesn't come from the outside like we talked about, it comes from that internal. So when I accepted it instead of fighting against it, which is something that I know Abra talked about a lot last week and a lot of other people, it was like, you have to go through these gears from acceptance to resistance and pushing back to accepting. And a lot of the things was the flowing like water was a very consistent cultural theme that kept coming up across multiple different cultures. And when you do flow like water, and one of the manners in which you can do that is to, when you see that resistance, when you're like, I don't fucking like that, or this is fucking stupid, to switch it on its head and be like, okay, if I was going to give this a chance, I'm going to do it. And so you do, and then you try it out and you see it for yourself, because learning and watching a couple YouTube videos and looking at a couple of paintings isn't it's if you are still resistant, it's not going to hurt you to do so, but it very well could dramatically change the way that you perceive the world. And that was something that happened to me. And so whenever I opened myself up to it and I started thinking and working about it, it was difficult and I couldn't fucking understand it. And so when I see you guys talking about how you understand it, showing your pieces that you're making and you're doing, I'm like, fuck, man, how do I do that? Like, how do I fucking figure that out? And so in that process, okay, now I'm open to it. Now I'm gonna learn. Now I'm gonna talk to these people, and hearing people talk about like, oh yeah, like I fucking hated this, but this is what I did. This is the process by which I did it. That really helped me. Hearing people talk about and acknowledging their own struggles with these things was like, okay, all right, so I'm not the only one. And now instead of being in a room by myself, I am in a room with one more person. And this person is already doing it. So now I can be like, okay, all right, I can do it too. All right, let me give it a shot. And then I give it a shot and I make some dog shit. That's okay. All right, whatever. Throw it out there. All right, here's my dog shit. Whatever. Who cares? Make another piece. Make another piece. Okay, now I'm slowly, okay, break the pieces down. All right. And through, it's almost as if to let the water flow, you have this dam of all different sized rocks, and it's got sand, it's got big boulders, it's got little tiny pebbles, and one piece at a time you're moving it and you get a little bit of a flow, and then you realize, fuck, you know what, if I used a shovel this would be fantastic. And so then you go and you get a shovel and you use the shovel. Now you're making a little bit more progress and the water's flowing smoothly. Eventually when you get to that breakthrough moment, it is when the resistance of those stones and of that wall, of that barrier, whatever it is, cannot be contained. The flow can't be contained by that barrier. That barrier is no longer strong enough and it washes away. And now you have this flood of inspiration, this flood of information, this flood of
Morning out
energy,
there.
positivity, whatever it is that you've been resisting. That is what happens when you
Trying to
let
get
it
myself
come through. And
motivated.
part of doing these things has been that for me. And I really love watching and seeing
Stayed
other
up way
people
too
trying
long
things
playing
out,
games
even if it's
last
just a
night.
little tiny element in the side. You can tell last week people were doing it. Now I'm seeing
I'm
a
getting
couple of
there.
people do
I'll
just
speak
wild
today.
ass fucking colors and different things that they've never done before and having discussions about it. And that energy, it's just like one person lighting a match in the dark and everybody's torch gets lit one at a time. And now we're huddled up in a circle and everything's brightly lit and now we can see a little bit better. And that's what these spaces do. So I'm going to stop talking because I want to hear from Samin. Samin, tell us about your breakthroughs. Regale us a tale of your breakthroughs in your life.
Regale us a
Hello,
tale.
everyone. Can you guys hear me? Okay, I'm really happy to be here again with you guys. And, as always, this topic is something that I don't have academic related education to art, but it was always in my life. And, mostly I had to learn stuff by myself. And exactly this was the reason that I couldn't understand so many things, such as, for example, those inner blocks. I started doing things without learning it, academically. And, because I couldn't see the results I saw other people could gain, I started, to not to believe myself and, to stop creating. And, I had this kind of inner block that I couldn't really understand why I couldn't draw something like it was in my mind. As artists, we can see visions of what we are going to create. And to me it was really hard. And before I really when I saw
Sometimes.
I was drawing something and I wasn't satisfied with it, I just stopped doing anything. I didn't continue that, even that piece. If it was just, the first step was creating a perfect circle and I couldn't do it, so I didn't continue. But after some time I just asked myself, you're not doing this for anyone. No one's gonna see this. You're just creating because you want to create. So just go with it. Just go
That's
and
the
draw
best way
as
right
much as
there.
ugly circles you can. And then don't be disappointed at yourself and what you've done. Just continue it. Continue with that ugly shape. And the moment I did that, I started to see, wow, that ugly circle turned into a beautiful character, which was so special. And it could be something that no one could create. It was something really special. It was mine because of that fault, because of that ugliness. And at that moment, I at that moment that I asked myself, just stop looking at it just like something which is ugly and continue creating something out of it. Then came back and saw the result, and I was just so happy with it. And at that moment, I just asked myself, go back to your other pieces which are not complete because you just didn't like them, because you just weren't satisfied enough. Go back to them and just create more and more of this ugly stuff. Yes, at first, or maybe at the 30th try, even, it's not going to look as perfect as I wanted. But after, the 35th time, it will be a masterpiece. And it truly happened to me. I'm talking of my true experience here to you guys. It really happened. It exactly happened through my 100-day challenge. At first, I drew something and I was so disappointed at myself. And I just looked back at it. I said, oh, this looks horrible. This is just awful. But, I saw that progress in the fifth day. No one can believe, but in the fifth day it happened. And you just need to continue. And the breakthrough and the expansion just happens exactly at that moment that you say, no, don't stop, go ahead, do it. Even if it's something that is not beautiful to the eye and no one's gonna understand it, no, just do it. This is your trying. This is you trying for something better. And it will be better. It will be one of the best in a near future. Maybe in 5 days, maybe in 2 weeks, and it will happen to you. So this is my answer and my vision about this topic. I hope I could answer it in a better, it's in a good way. And thank you so much, dear Shanazim, first and everybody for listening to me and giving me the opportunity to talk.
Oh, Simon, I love when you're gonna come up and tell these stories because yeah. So that is amazing. And I love that you were able to look back on yourself with grace and be like, oh no, I can keep pushing forward, I can keep doing what I'm doing and now be able to come back to this idea better because I feel like I'm learning how to be a little bit more show myself grace now. I feel like that's one of the breakthroughs I'm trying to have right now. Because I have giant stacks all around my bed right now of paintings that I had started 2 years ago that I just put down and I didn't work on again because I wanted to get started on the next idea or I lost interest in that idea and I just wanted to keep creating while I had the fervor. And for a long time I hated looking at those paintings. Like, yeah, of course, it was I don't want to look at it. Don't show it to me. Don't bring it out. Why are you trying to show people who are coming over? Please stop. You know what I mean? And that was exactly what you're going through. I'm able to look at those now, and feel a little bit more grace and almost feel proud of that journey. Just like you had said, Sam, and that that journey that you took where you kept pushing through until you were able to show yourself that grace and go and rework on those and finish them. And you said that those become masterpieces. And I love that because you and Glenn have been talking a lot about masterpieces. Mohika has mentioned masterpieces, but I didn't quite think about what a masterpiece, what that word meant to me, right? And I love that you had drawn this parallel to like putting that effort and that love where you're satisfied with it is what makes it a masterpiece for you and for your art. And I think that that's something that we could all take and reframe the way that we shape um, just these ideals that have been put on us for these high expectations. Because beforehand, like people would, anytime you'd hear about the word masterpiece in school, it would be always associated to the grades, right? Like there's no way you were going to be able to create a masterpiece, or at least that's what I thought. And I'm sure that's what a lot of us thought because it was this really high regarded thing that almost felt unachievable. And I love what Glenn has done when we started talking about reshaping what fine art was and also reshaping what that masterpiece was. And I love that you have drawn that parallel here, Simon, because I think that's the next step that I need to take mentally. And I love that you were able to actually share your story because it makes me feel like I can keep pushing forward in this way with this mental expansion that I'm trying to have in the grace that I'm trying to show on my own work.
So I want to sorry, I was muted. I want to piggyback on that a little bit, and I want to add a little bit of outside context because we're talking a lot about these. You both have talked a lot about the unfinished pieces and coming back to them, and I want to throw a little bit of a recent parable and a recent example. So I'm over here and I'm learning color theory, and I'm reading this German Johann Itten book, and it's really like intense and all this stuff. And I'm learning about color and mixing, and I asked Nazi, I'm like, hey, can we go to the store and get some like acrylic paints? So that I can mix colors. And she's like, no, we already have real paints, and that's going to be the best way for you to actually see the colors because I've done acrylic, and acrylic's great for some people. She's like, but if you want to learn color, I think you should try this out because it's a completely different experience. So I gave it a shot, and she pulled out an older piece that was just a bunch of, everybody's seen them, they're beautiful swirls, and I fucking love it. And it was just these beautiful baby blue and white swirls on a canvas, and it was very much just like it had been sitting on the desk for a while, and it was dry. And so she gets me a canvas that's already been gessoed, and she sits down and she rolls it. This is liquid, and this is what it does. And here's all those shitty brushes you have that we probably shouldn't be using for oil, but you're just learning. And we're setting it up, and she's already got a little bit on the canvas and it's dry, and I've got a blank canvas. So I'm sitting here and I just start fucking going ham. And one of the things that I do as an author, I don't believe in writer's block. It does not exist. And a lot of people are going to balk at that, but it's fucking true. If I look at a blank piece of paper or a blank screen, the way that I get past that and never have that problem is I just start fucking monkey banging on the keyboard, whatever comes out, because that blank space gives me, I'm not an anxious person. But if I was ever going to characterize anxiety, that feeling is what it gives me, and I just start doing something. So I'm doing the same thing with art, where I just fucking pick a color and I go for it. And I just fucking put that shit up there, and I figure it out from there. So I'm sitting there, and my nose is touching. I'm like, this is weird. It's tacky. It's texture. It's got a smell to it. Like, wow, this is no wonder you fucking guys like this shit. This is fun. Like, holy hell. I love every bit of this. It engages so many of the senses. So here I am, la-di-da, doing this dumb shit that I'm doing on the canvas and learning and mixing colors. And I look over and she's just fucking rendered the entirety of a building that wasn't there before, and the steps and the grass. And I'm just like, oh, fuck, man. And I'm looking over at this and I'm just like, holy fuck, I want to get that good. Like, it was
I'm having too much humor at your expense.
Watching something that previously went unfinished, immediately with just the sitting down and doing it, I was like, holy shit, that's magic. Like, that is quite legit. If there ever was a magical thing in this world, I got to watch it happen, and you guys get to make it happen every single fucking day. So one of the things I want to say before we move on to Tricky is a lot of artists talk about this unfinished work and that hesitancy, and I totally get that. And here's the thing, I'm still in the beginner's mind, right? I'm still in the beginner's mind, so I get to say dumb shit that I don't fully understand. And it's going to be profound, because the only difference between a beginner and a master is experience, but they generally have the same mindset. If you've ever seen the graph where it's like the beginner crypto trader and the master crypto trader, and like they have like the smushed head and the other one's like got the hood on, they're doing the same things, and the people who are stuck in between are the ones who are struggling. So I use that analogy whenever I get stuck doing something. I think of what the dumbest fucking thing to do is, and I just do that, and usually I'll figure it out. Usually I'll get it going. So as a beginner, one of the things that I want to say is nobody fucking knows if you're done with a piece or not. No one fucking really knows. Like, and when we're learning Impressionism, and I've been saying that for years. I've been telling her this for years. I'll pick it up and I'm like, oh, guys, look at this D&D. You know, my friends come over for D&D. I'm like, look at this and look at this. And they, they're like, that's cool. Like, we're used to it. We don't give a shit. But, but they don't know that it's not done. And she's like, oh God, I'm so anxious. Don't show this to people. I'm like, I didn't know this was done. I thought this was it. I thought this thing right here, it looks amazing the way that it is. And as we're learning about Impressionism and Cubism and Fauvism and the breaking down of these things and the breaking of the rules, I think one of the best things that we could learn from all of these types of art movements that aren't the Baroque and the classical and things like that, that are the really, really finely detailed, really intense pieces, is that nobody fucking knows but you. And yeah, maybe another artist might be like, okay, I would have done this different. We're all like that. Every fucking person is like that. Everybody thinks they could do better. And some of us are honest and like, oh, I couldn't fucking do that. And that's okay too. But when you have that piece that you have that anxiety with, sometimes if you can come back to it, you can make something beautiful, right? And if you have that energy. But I don't think that anxiety for unfinished pieces, I don't think it's necessary. And as we're learning about Impressionism and Cubism and Fauvism and all of these other movements, I think that the showcasing of what these artists did should also be leveraged of like, when you get to a point where the gas just runs out of the tank and you've done all you can do, maybe it's time to just fucking call it. And that seems to be the most difficult thing for artists to do. And I haven't hit that yet. And I'm sure that I absolutely will. And I'll feel like a fool for saying it. But I would rather feel like a fool and say it than be a fool and not say it.
I think where
That
my hesitancy, sorry, I think where my hesitancy comes from is that I've associated time spent with a piece
Don't worry,
enough to know that
Schnazzy.
like
He's
if I
getting ready to
spend
get it
more
from
time
me.
on a piece, it'll be better. Just like Samin was saying, is like, yeah, if you go back to it, you can make it better and you can keep working on it. But I just have the too much gene there, and I don't. It's really difficult for me to be like, okay, I'm gonna call it here, or yes, I know that it could be better if I keep spending time with this piece, but I don't have to keep spending time with this piece. That's the trigger that I need to build that I haven't gone through yet. And I think that's exactly where that hesitancy came from.
all right. Before we move on, Samin threw her hand up real fast. Did you have something you want to add before we move on to Tricky?
Yeah, just something really small. I wanted to say, at that moment that I decided to go back and make something that I left complete, uh, because I've changed my perspective, the thing that recently was something ugly in my eyes, for a moment I just look at it and it was just beautiful. I didn't really feel the that kind of pressure I had before to go back and do something to it because it's ugly. No, after I realized how to look at stuff, when I look back at it, I just see, no, it has its own beauty. It can be like that and say the same, and it's still beautiful. Before I couldn't, my eyes were closed to that kind of fact, but I understood that no, it's not right. It's beautiful in its own way, and you really need to accept it just how it is. I wanted to just add this to my what I was telling you guys. So this is it. Over to you guys.
I think that was very valuable to me, and I'm really grateful that you had stood up and were able to stand on business there because you're right. It's probably just the root of a deeper underlying issue of just like having this feeling that I'm still healing with my own mentality about like being good enough, right? And I think that that's probably just like showcasing itself in my process with art and all reality. So that's probably why I struggle with it, and I am trying to overcome and work on both of those things. So hopefully, we'll be able to see me put out more quantity as that isn't the case anymore, and overcoming those obstacles. Right, like maybe I'm having a breakthrough right now.
And I definitely think that every one of these conversations has the ability to maybe add a stone where it's needed. Maybe, the way that I think about it is if we keep that analogy I was talking about earlier, where you're removing stones from the riverbed so that the water can flow, you can then use those stones to pave a pathway towards wherever it is that you want to go. And I think that, anytime we have conversations, anytime we listen to spaces like this, talk in them, or anything like that, it's those little individual nuggets. When you remove something, you can also use that thing for somewhere else. You can also put it in its place. And something that has a blockage that has been blocking you, the best place to put it is underfoot and eventually behind you. So I just really wanted to put that out there, like every little thing. And there's multiple ways to handle everything, and I think it is valuable to explore those and to bring those up because we've had a lot of conversations, and I've had a lot of moments where somebody said something that to them was seemingly innocuous and not unimportant, that I was like, holy shit, I didn't fucking think about that. And it makes me feel like a dumbass, and in that moment I am. And the only way you can get better at anything is to start from being a dumbass. And so I love being a dumbass in that manner because it allows me to continue to get better. And it's not necessarily me being hard on myself. It's more of just like, okay, if I put myself in this box of the dumbass box, and I like in my art when I'm putting things, I put the dunce cap. I use the little dunce cap stamp that Mario Paint has, and the kids were asking me about it, like, what's this? I was like, oh, that's me, like the thing and the notepad and the drawing, and it's just me taking notes. And now they use it. Now they draw that. My middle son, came home from school yesterday, and he ripped open his bag so that he could show me a pencil drawing he had done on the back of a sheet of paper of the dunce cap guy, and a little piece of paper and a pencil drawing it. And it just filled me up. It filled me up because that's what and they were like, well, why do you do that? I was like, oh, because I feel like I'm dumb and I'm always learning. And they resonated with it at like 6 and 4 and 11 years old. So much so that they're replicating it. They understand what the symbolism of that means. And now they're like, oh, that's dad. And then like half of it is so fucking funny because it's like they're always going to associate a dunce cap with their father. And that's so fucking funny to me. And I can't wait to see how that replicates itself in the future. And that they take that mentality and be like, yeah, you have to start from the beginning. You have to start from not knowing something to be able to then know something. But speaking of people who know a few things, Tricky, thank you so much for coming up. Talk to us about Fauvism and your experience, because you've been making some pieces and breakthroughs.
Oh, first off, we're gonna have to put you in an apple box because I gotta bite it. We're Halloween time, so I gotta bite into the candy ass just a little bit because I gotta take, like, when Jess shows my stuff before, and this is coming from a person that pretty much streams 90% of what he does, but if Jess takes my stuff and shows somebody like her mom or something like that, we have had some wars because what I want you to understand on the opposite side of things is that's our mind. So if we don't have the opportunity to share that mind first when we think it's done, well, at least for me, it leads to that just a wee bit of agitation, just a little bit. So I completely understand where, Jess is showing stuff to her mom, and it's like, wait a minute. Well, I thought it was done, baby. I just wanted to show her. So that's my head. You're working in my mind space there. When I get to the point where I want to project what I wanted to project in the piece, then yeah, cool. Ask and I'll show it off. And again, this comes from a person that streams out 90% of what he does, the trials, the tribulations. I really like challenges, and I guess other than breaking into your ass a little bit for doing that, don't do that. At least not. I guess you don't have the opportunity to do it with my stuff. I guess that's got to be a married couple thing. But as for Fauvism, really what I took to heart was the wild beast side. So when I looked at it, I saw the colors, I saw them being in the wrong places, and I really didn't, I don't know, this might be funny, but I really didn't want to take the time. I wanted to find, I was like, there has to be an easier way. So at first I was like, okay, well maybe if I just start out with some black and white and just start doing some fill here, some swipes here, that'll be cool. That you will not see those. Jess won't show you those. But the portrait paintings that I had, and then it was like, okay, well they do a lot of portraits. So to wash my mind away of shadows, how can I typically do that? And my mind went to gradients. So in Procreate, there's a gradient mapping feature. It gives you quite a few selections. I went through. I think on the first one I used Blaze, and it was like, okay, well there's an empty canvas. Now if I can just take my fill pen down to 1-2% and just start touching with color, oddball color here, oddball color there, and see if I can get something cohesive. Now, after doing that, I really, really enjoy those pieces. Like the Andy Kaufman portrait that I did that with is maybe one of my favorite portraits that I've ever painted from the beginning and then transformed into something else. So this Fauvism really kind of hooked me this week. As to where Cubism, not so much. It was fun to do. Fauvism really hooked me. And then the piece that I put in the comments, that was the piece from scratch that I streamed where it was like, okay, I'm just going to go wild. We're going to go big brush strokes. I always try and concentrate on my portrait stuff. I always try and concentrate on the eyes, somehow bringing out the eyes. So really in the Fauvism thing, that was the one thing that I kind of kept true to my normal style, was trying to bring attention to each set of eyes. But I really enjoyed putting color where it shouldn't be. So that will be something I continue on with quite a bit.
Whenever you told me yesterday about the gradient mapping, I thought that was genius because I've been I use the gradient map a lot whenever I'm working on like the at-rest protocols piece, for example, just because I feel like if I'm playing with digital art, I should be using digital art tools. And the gradient map is one of, I think, the best digital art tools that you can't get in real life whenever you're playing with like oil paints, for example, right? And so I try to use the gradient map a lot whenever I'm working with color because I want to use my tools to the best ability. And I didn't even think about using the gradient map when trying to make a fauvism piece. And the way that you talked about it and you show I put up above the actual side by side of the finished work that you had with its normal colors and then making it more of a fauvism piece. You can see the exploration that you had with it, and it's gorgeous. And I think you're right. I think it works perfectly. So, like, I'm curious to know if you could talk a little bit, like, was the shirt one of those moments that you felt like you had to add the external color after you had done the gradient mapping, or if you could talk a little bit about the specifics there for me.
So one thing with the gradient mapping, especially like with the Kaufman piece that you have up there, I tend to do those in separate layers, but when I went to do the gradient mapping, I flattened all my layers together. So I had this basic one flat color hue. And from there, like the white just felt like the white just felt like it needed to stand out because it stood out in the original. So I wanted to use the most contrasting color that I had in the mix to yes, it definitely called for being its own separate thing. Kind of like where the bottom lip, where he's kind of got his bottom lip kind of tweaked up a little bit. That touch of white in there and the touch of white where the shadows are around his crazy eyes. Kaufman was a crazy man if you don't know him, and I'm a big comedian fan. But he had in the particular picture, you can go back and you can practically find the picture that I painted as a real picture. He looks just as nutty. So to use him in a fauvism piece, it just seemed like the natural thing to do. But yeah, where I added the colors, the yellows, the greens, the typical, what I guess, rainbow hue is a palette choice. Anything that I could get to contrast, but not contrast enough to take away from the overall piece, I threw it at it.
Well, it really works, especially in that piece. And it is, if you go to the board, it's the first one is the one with all of the three pieces that you had made, and then the one next to it is that side by side from the I wouldn't say it. I don't like using the term normal rendering, but the rendering that you had made of it to start with, and then the Fauvism version of it side by side. And so I thought that was really cool to see just even the parallels right there. And I think it's worth a look for everybody in this room to go check it out because I think this was, just like Abro had said yesterday, the perfect way to use a different color that is still just as vibrant to replicate those ideas of shadows without there actually being shadows. And for anybody who's not aware about what a gradient map is, so if you basically think about like drawing a picture in black and white, right? And you have all of these gray areas in between, what the gradient map does is actually you can associate these different brightnesses of color or brightnesses of that gray scale to a color that overlays on top of it. And so these different gradient maps have pre-mades for different colors, but you can also create your own. So on Procreate, for example, when you do the gradient mapping, that's what's happening. And so a lot of actual like comic artists, whenever they're working in the digital scape, a lot of times they'll just make it in black and white and they'll have their grayscale as usual. And then whenever they want to add color to their comic as fast as possible, they have these gradient map palettes that they just lay over it and the piece is just about done. Then they can add their little highlight sections and the piece is ready to go. And so that's something that I had learned whenever I was researching a lot about how to make digital art that carried with me and I use it a lot. And so this was one of the coolest ways I've seen gradient mapping work in not that same context. So I'm really glad that you brought it up, Frankie.
And I really love hearing the technical talk. I really love when people get into the fucking weeds about how something works. So down the line, like I really think it would be cool, and I don't want to get too like far down the rabbit hole with it, but I do really like hearing people's processes. And we were talking, I was talking with Schnazzy about like the painting stuff, and she's like, you know what, you actually probably would learn a lot from like getting a canvas and doing a Bob Ross, like just put it on the TV and actually just fucking following it. She's like, because that will help you build some of the fundamental skills and you learn that way and you enjoy that style. So doing that, and I think that, you know, that would be super fun to be able to even just like see a short video and have somebody talk about like, here's what I do, here's how I do it. And it's interesting because that leads in to something that I've heard from multiple people in the space is that the general consensus is like showcasing the art demystifies the art and removes the mystery. I think that that's wrong. Watching somebody make a piece is more magical to me than it is just seeing the finished piece sometimes, because I love watching how it comes together and slowly being able to pick up on a micro skill when somebody's talking about it, is, and being able to ask them is such a cool thing. And really, you can't take anything away. It's that same concept of like somebody else learning something from you doesn't take anything away from you. If you're holding a torch and somebody else leans their dead branch over and it lights up, it doesn't take anything away from the flame that you have. And so I really I really think that that would be something that's cool, and we get to see that a lot with, you know, Tricky does it, Royko just got up here, and I am going to go to Masterpiece and Possum after this, and then Royko, but Royko does it, Breadhead does it. So it's really cool to sit in these Discord, I was in the Dude Discord watching them make it and seeing that process and being able to be like, what's going on right now? So I really love that. I really love that you guys are doing that and open with it and showcasing it. And I think it would be really cool to be able to pick somebody in the community to do something like that way later on down the line. But that being said, Tricky, thank you so much for showcasing that and explaining it to us. I definitely am really glad that you're trying it, and I'm really glad that you're honest when you don't like it. So if you guys try a thing and you fucking hate it, it is equally as important for you to let us know that and tell us why you don't like it and what you prefer instead, because there might be somebody else out there who might be holding their tongue that's like, you know what, I hated it too, and here's why, and then we get to have a dialogue. All right, so I am going to move to Masterpiece. Sameen raised her hand real fast. I do want to hear from her.
I'm so sorry. It was my mistake. Go on.
Oh, no, you're totally fine. All right, next up, we have the man, the myth, the legend, the masterpiece. How are you today? Let's talk about breakthroughs.
Oh, there's. Good morning, everybody. Snazzy, Force, Tricky, Sami, Royco, Uncle Ron, Gork in the house, Mr. Scribbles, G in here, Samantha, Chum in here, Uncle Ron, Big Chief. We got Trap Flesh in here. We have Flat Tune. Good to Abros here. Netta's here. Shanaz, Ohagi Legend, Konnichiwa, Bahar, Kisman, we love you. A Rabbit Flower, another Konnichiwa, Somaye, love you. Zaz, Liza, Bahar, Digital Media, everybody else out there, Ginger Bruno Queen in the house. Oh yeah, we got everybody here, all the legends. I'm not one, but talking about breakthroughs, you guys are making the breakthroughs all the time. But I really love the joy of life, and you guys sharing the joy of life, because that's a real masterpiece. Is one of the defining pieces of art of all time. And at first you're looking at it, well, why is it so profound? Why was it such an instrumental piece of art? Because because we're all used to seeing this by now. But back then in Western culture, we didn't see that kind of art. We didn't see irregular shapes and stuff. We didn't see. We were going for perfection all before this piece of art. Perfections in nature and colors, and the colors are natural or unnatural, and the shapes are all irregular. You know, that's a breakthrough. This is expansion. This is that we're all used to it. But back then, this was incredible breakthrough. This is one of the masterful, best pieces of art that was ever made. And you just say, oh, it's just called the joy of life. But it's much more. It represents a state of pure perfection, freedom, sensual. Look at all the nudes and the subject matters of the nudes and stuff in there. It's just by the name itself and what it represents to the world was a complete breakthrough, and it's so cool that you showcased this one. Definitely a masterpiece of all our modern art. Everybody does this now, but back then, no, nobody did it. Everybody, look, this shock. People, what the fuck? What are they doing with those ugly? Look, take it away, But one of those, one of the things though is that was been used by Japanese art for a long time. So that's one of the influences of and I keep on mentioning, because you guys went a little too far. We're like 1900, but maybe you should talk about some of Japanese me is the type of art that kind of influenced a lot of this art with the regular shapes. They're how they embrace imperfection. Until then, everybody it's all perfection, but they create the perfection with the balance of color and all these, so what a joy of life, and what a joy to be in this space, everybody. It's a great time, and a big shout out to all your artists and collectors. This is a huge breakthrough in what we're doing on the ledger, and much love to everybody. Thanks for giving me a chance to speak up about that piece. It's really a masterpiece. Thank you, everybody.
Oh, masterpiece. We're so glad that you're able to come up and talk about it. And honestly, please stay up here. Because at the beginning of the space, I talked about a little bit of what you had said and what you had led into yesterday before you posted this in the comments. And I brought it up today because it was really striking. And I would love to hear a little bit more about those Japanese influences, because what I got from it was those lines. We see the lines here that we were exposed to for some of the first times in art, where there is this line art. Whenever we're talking about like our exposure on the other side of the seas, and I thought it was really interesting because when you were talking about like the history, you're right, we do really need to get into the Japanese history of art. Because whenever I think of some of the older pieces I've seen, a lot of them had like opalescent seashells um, embedded into their canvas, and their canvases were a lot different. It was almost like a resin type of canvas that I've seen in different museums, where these seashells were integrated, and then they had their beautiful lines that they would turn these into like feathers from a swan or a crane. And I don't know where that is placed in the history of things, but I know that it was one of these older pieces that was on exhibition here locally. And absolutely gorgeous. And you're right, they have this great counterbalance that they use with any kind of imperfection with the color, because it draws your eye across the whole piece, and it's almost like a journey and a treat to experience. So I wanted to know if you could talk a little bit about what you do know from that history.
Who'd she ask?
We may still be having some issues.
No,
Mac,
no, no. I
there you
got you.
go.
I'm
There you go.
sorry. Yeah, I got you. I was talking and
Oh,
forgot I was on hit the button. But yeah, let me talk. I love to talk a little bit about the history, because Japan was very isolated for a long time. Now, of course they are. We're the island, you know, and
so for any who's
it didn't
on
come to a big problem until,
listening to the
with the
stream
whaling.
wise,
We're whaling all over the world, and our sailors would end up in the shores of Japan. And they weren't treated that
we
nice.
don't like to, we won't shill
So
inside
it
the
goes
space
over
at
like
all. But if you
economics
guys do
again, because
happen to
whaling was
watch
was the
this over
business of the
here,
day. You know how things are, well, like
please
wars are
like to
over
show the
oil
collection
now,
over.
and back then the whales were, God, you know what we did to them. So if we had some, uh, sometimes the sailors
where I'm
would get,
putting the
you
stuff
know,
that
got
we're
out. I
talking
didn't want
about
to
in
land
here,
up
all
in
my
Japan.
weekly
So
tests,
eventually we went over
those
there.
things
It was like Harry
are all
something.
in
Harry,
DigiTrick.
I can't remember my history, but
The link that
something.
is pinned
We
is
invaded
Dick,
19,
and I don't
1856 or
believe I have
something
it
around
pinned
that. And
elsewhere,
we invaded Japan. It was
but I
huge. It
will.
was the black ships. You
90%
know,
of this stuff is
we
on
was
auction
probably our,
right
there
now.
we go, how we
Some of them
American
longer,
invades, you know.
most of
So
them
it
not.
was, yeah, around, I think around 1856. My years might be wrong, but because it was like 10 years later after
And
we invaded,
for
that
YouTube
was
and Rumble,
we opened the expansion and
and
trade
X, I will
at
put
that
that on
point.
the
But it
screen.
wasn't showcased until 1967 at the World Expo in Paris, and everybody got
That's
to
good
see
enough
that
for
art,
that.
you know. And that's when we really we come up with the term, and it's Japan,
But this
JAPON
is the one that I
is
was
me.
talking
Like
about.
Japan is me, which, yeah, Japan is me, and embraces some very cool aspects of art. And that was showcased in like I think about 67,
We'll
1867
just
or
leave
so.
Kaufman up there.
And you know, and then what, 10 years later,
But
or, you know, I'll have to
McConaughey
get
and
my
Jim
dates
Carrey
right,
is
but,
up
you
there,
know,
and the other one
we
will
have
be up there
Monet
by
copying
the end
the
of the night.
Japanese art, and we got Matisse, who's the
The
founder of
architect
modern.
Matisse and
How did they become
the
founders of
Fauvism from
modern art when the
scratch
Japan,
piece. And now
we
I'll
stole it
shut
from
up and
Japan?
enjoy the rest of the space.
All that asymmetry and the color balance and everything. So, you know, it's like, wait a minute, they deserve to be some of the masters too. And you know, it's amazing if you hear the story how they did influence Western art, and they don't get the respect. And that's why I like giving that perspective of world influence and what they really did provide to art. And definitely we showcase that on the weekends when we have a Japanese space. So Masterpiece to do is Japanese, and just Japanese art, and because it's so important, and they don't have their voice. So the fine art will definitely take care of them. So uh, you know, it's amazing what they did. So yeah, and the history as well. And I could go more into the style. Actually, there was like that irregular style that they used was a type of art that they that's called Fukiense, I think, where they embrace that imperfection. So, you know, and get that balance. But it's amazing what they have done, and that major breakthrough came from the Japanese, actually. You know, for the joy of, and that's why this joy of life, which is, you know, culminates to the you know, ultimate state of pure pleasure. Come on, what better breakthrough through than getting the ultimate state of pure pleasure? It sounds euphoric.
So if
So
anybody wants to know,
Nirvana.
it's
So that's what this
a
piece
good way
was,
to
all
relegate
represented.
this
And
is
you guys are the
fuck what
modern,
you say.
you represent
It's
this
actually
now. You
called
guys are the
Fook You
new
Say,
masters,
but an
bringing
easy way
this
to
Nirvana
remember it
to
is
us, this pure state
fuck what you say. So
that we're
Fook You
getting
Say.
to. So
It's a
much love
really,
to all
really
the
awesome
artists,
Japanese
you know,
art.
who are doing the breakthroughs.
Absolutely. And I really love that you're so fucking passionate about the Japanese culture and about the way in which it impacted art, because you're not wrong at all. As far as when you speak about the influence and the borrowing, aka the stealing, however you want to view it. Not only did we see that a lot from the Japanese, we saw it a lot from Africa and the African masks. And Abro talked a lot about this for Cubism, but also I've seen that there were a lot of the artists around this time, because the Fauvists and the Cuvists, some people did a little bit of both, and that's really interesting to look at some of the lesser known works and see, like, okay, they're a little Fauvism, then they went to Cubism. Some people forewent Fauvism in favor of Cubism down the line, and a lot of them have that cultural tie back to these African masks and the shapes and what it evoked. And it's really interesting to hear the Japanese side, because I have seen a lot of Japanese art, and I think what's interesting about talking about these subjects and talking about art history is something I've been thinking about, it's like, okay, well, we're going down this line. All these art movements, and there are a limited number of the macro art movements. But when you're talking about like the Japanese, I'm sure that there's even equally as many of the macro archetypes and the macro movements, like Impressionism, Cubism, the Baroque style. Once we get through a whole bunch of these different things, before we circle back around and really get to showcase what we've learned and what we've practiced, it would be really cool to also go into those, zoom into those cultures and be like, all right, let's go back to the early 600s of Japanese art and look and see at the processes in which they did, and then we'll move up to the next movement and really zoom in on these individual cultures and see how they progressed as well. So I definitely think that all of those things are something, it continues to add more inspiration to our collective cups that we can go. And I absolutely recommend that you guys go to Masterpiece, follow Masterpiece, check out the afternoon Masterpiece spaces. It is the companion space to these morning spaces that we do. The banner and the name may have changed, but the goal remains the same. And Masterpiece is the hub and the funnel for new and amazing masterwork pieces. Him and Perzino Songs host an amazing high energy space, and we really, really appreciate how much work he puts in and how much work they put in. So thank you so much, so much, Masterpiece, for being that other side of the coin and bringing that level of energy and showcasing those artists and really helping everybody get to see what those are so that we can focus on this aspect. And I'm really, really grateful, really appreciative. And I do want to move on to XR Posse, who sent us a fantastic video that we watched. And I want to talk about that.
Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
Oh yeah, loud and clear.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah, that video, like the colors of it reminded me a lot of Fauvism and how like expressive Fauvism is, and just thinking about how like children make art, and like children are like natural impressionists where they like don't necessarily get into like
That is very
super
true.
fussy
I love that
perfectionism that
part.
adults
That going
do,
back into the
and
fine
like
arts is
they
almost
go and
like
have
you get
fun
to
with color.
kind of take that
And
childish aspect of yourself and
yeah,
colors
like
everywhere.
that was a lot of what that was about, was experimenting, just like a kid does.
I thought it was
Absolutely.
oh, sorry, Forrest. I thought it was fantastic, and I went ahead and I linked it up above where she had actually posted the link for me to watch. And it's only 3 minutes. It's a music video, but absolutely right. Like it kind of helps you translate into the more I don't know how to put it into words very easily. Almost like bringing your kid brain back out and understanding the passion for exploring these different wild beasts. It actually was wild beasts too in these colors, and so it was really kind of perfect segue into kind of getting into the mental shift you have to get into. I would think before creating something like this, because like all of the different ideas and the way that the animations were moving, it was very vibrant and enjoyable and kind of had like this excitement around exploring color and exploring these animals. And I thought that that was really neat, and I wish I could find a translation for what the lyrics actually were, and I'll probably look that up after this call. But I just thought it was brilliant. How did you come across something like this?
Well, I've been learning Polish for a while, and my friend who actually grew up in Poland was like, "Oh, go listen to this." I remember listening to this as a kid. And the chorus of it is, the boar is wild. It's something about him having like sharp horns, and if you run into him in the woods, you have to climb up a tree to get away from him. But like in Polish, uh, the word for boar is like dzik, and then the word for wild is like dziki. So it's uh more of a play on words in Polish than it is in English.
So I thought it was really cool. I love that style of music video, and not to get too far off subject. I fucking love the art of music videos, and especially
Yeah.
older ones. They did not fucking hold back, and you don't see that anymore. Everything is kind of cut and paste and a little bit dry. But what stood out to me, and I don't know if I said this to Schnazzy while we were watching it, but the colors were the thing that popped. But like the only artist aside from the big ones, the Picassos and the Da Vinci's and the big names,
Dylan
the
Mortal
only
Wombats, I heard
contemporary or
you
modern artist that had ever
joined
stood
us
out
over
to me
here
that I
on
learned about was
Kick.
Keith Haring.
Nice to
And it
see
was the
you, my brother.
colors that really popped out
This
to
is
me.
a
And so
every
when
morning
I started
event.
seeing these kids fucking
We listen
yeeting
into the
these
Scholar
balls at the
Studio, the
wall,
Fine Arts
making these
Culture.
fucking creatures, I was like, that looks
I
a
try
lot
to
like,
keep my
that
mouth shut
reminds
as
me of
much as
Keith
possible.
Haring.
But we'll be around a
And so
lot
like
today with
just
Wax
seeing the
Wednesday and
pop of the
Breakman
colors, I
Spot.
think it really
But
does, like, it
awesome to
lends
see you.
itself into the
Let me
conversation of
actually,
Fauvism. And you're right, how
now
watching
that I
my kids,
can,
like my
look at
son
that,
last
I
night, so I
can shout
D&D
out a
and
Mortal
Schnazzy was putting him to
Wombat.
bed, and my middle son every night I've
Thank you
been
for coming
going.
over, and
So
thank you for
they
coming in
have a
too.
TV in their
I
room,
will be looking
and
out
they have their
for
switches plugged
you.
in because I'm play Mario Paint on the
Going
Switch,
back
and I've got a
silent.
little mouse that plugs into it. And so they will be making art like all day long, but they love sitting down there and watching me make it because they'll be like, "Oh, you should do this. You should use this thing." And I'm like, "All right, fuck it, cool, I'll do that." And it's like probably 9:45. He should be asleep by now, and he will not fall asleep because he was waiting for me to come and sit down and make my piece for the night. And so I sat down with him and I did it, and he fell right the fuck to sleep. But while I was transferring my picture over to my phone from the Switch, I saw all of the screenshots because I tell them, take a screenshot every time you make something. Take a screenshot, save it, and just looking at the wild fucking creations that these kids make. And you're right, it's unfucking bridled.
Oh,
They
it's okay.
just
You have to go into
and
your
there's
stream
something so fucking
dashboard, and then you have to
inspirational
look for a
about
tab
that.
called
And I'm
Host
really lucky that
Channel.
I get to
But
see them do that and get
maybe
to
when we're done
inspire
here,
them to
if
do
you're
that,
still
because
around,
they do not fucking hold back.
I'll
It
show
is the
you how
rainbow
it's
for
done.
all of these
There's
kids.
only
And
I
it's such an
basically rated the
inspiring thing. And I think
sensei in
that
Nashville
video,
Lou
although
because
I
that's
didn't
all everybody
understand
that I
a
know.
fucking word that they were
So we
saying,
kind of just
and I'm
bounce
really
back and
glad that you
forth.
told me that the boar is
But
wild, and it
yeah,
really does fit
if
in
you
these
stick
little
around to the end of
synchronicities.
this, probably 15 minutes or so, we'll
But
see who we
I'm
can
really
raid out
appreciative that you
into
brought that up. So
before
if
the
you
Wax
have
Wednesday
any
space
more
starts.
out there and fantastic
And then I'll
Polish music
probably just start it right
videos
back up.
that are extremely artistic or anything in general, please send them to us because that was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I think like the 80s in general, like kids programming in the 80s was really like tapping into something. I think that is what a lot of art is like you're capturing a moment where you're like tapping into different brain spaces. Like some art is obviously kind of depressing and that's a brain space. And I've had very wildly different styles in my own art where like man, I really like tapped into something with this one and it came out really easily and I love it and everyone loves it. And then there's other pieces where like I tap into something that's maybe a little bit more
I got you
like
guys. It's not too
academic or
bad.
more
It's just a
realistic
separate
and it's a very
dashboard from your
different brain
actual Kick.
space and
So
the
if you
piece
do
looks very different.
kick.com,
So
instead you
art
want to
is
do
very much about like
stream.kick.com,
tapping
and then
into
it'll ask you to load
different
in and load into your
mind
dashboard.
spaces
Once you
and
follow
times in
somebody,
history
if they
too.
are live, you click that host channel and they will pop up
Hell
in your
yeah,
list to host
100%
out
agree.
to.
And
But yeah, we'll go.
I think you're really mirroring that aspect that we're talking about as well, of like it really does, like that passing of the baton back and forth between the learning and the play side. It's very much a kid thing. Kids are always paying attention, they're always learning, they're always listening, even if they look like they're not paying attention, and they internalize that and they love showcasing that. And I think that we are no different. We are no fucking different. We just have a lot more of restraints that have either been put on us or we have put on ourselves to keep it. And when to to just tie that in, because I did have Royko up here, to tie that in real fast, I think that if you were to take anything from that video and from this conversation that we've had with XR Posse, is if you want to make that breakthrough, go back to being a kid. Don't get stuck in nostalgia for too long, but go back to being a kid. And I think that really does, that energy, that lack of care, that freedom, that little bit of nostalgia really does help us just fucking let it all go and have that breakthrough. And I think that anytime I've ever had a big breakthrough, I've always captured some feeling.
Yep.
Oh, I think that he got a phone call and his mic cut out. But I wanted to point out something that you had said earlier, just about like the 80s and kids programming really tapping into the more Fava style of art without, I think, expressing it outwardly. And I wanted to bring up this aesthetic that we saw in the 90s and 80s, and I posted it up to the board. And it was this village, this global village coffee house aesthetic, which I guess is what they're calling it. They're not actually giving it this uh a name to it, but like I think about early Starbucks and just seeing these shapes, these vibrant shapes all throughout, and it almost seems like a Fauvism revival. Whenever when you had said it like that, it sparked in my brain. But it was never given the name of that. And but when you look at the artwork, it's very similar and it has a lot of parallels. It also seems like it does have a lot of those African art style culture integrated into it, and also it seems like some more Mexican art is coming through as well. And so I think it's really interesting that they took kind of all of those ideas and we saw that little bitty revival, but it wasn't. I don't know. Maybe I'm just misremembering because I was young, but I don't really feel like it was talked about a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the like kind of big paintings and the like at Starbucks, it almost looked like splashy paint and like it had a really Fauves kind of color palette. I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I posted a screenshot of some of the examples that I'd seen on Google real quick while you were talking. I was looking it up because like, oh, what is that? I feel like there's a
Oh yeah,
name
yeah,
that I
yeah.
can
Those
explore. Yeah.
colors. Those kind of colors. Yeah, definitely. I mean, now we're kind of like dealing with like millennial gray. And I think we're like at the tail end of that where people are like, I hate gray. I don't like this. And we're like hopefully going back to like things being more colorful because I'm not a fan of gray everywhere. I had it was a transmission shop down the street from my house and it was like orange and yellow and I loved it and they painted it gray and I was really upset about it.
I hope I'm back. Can everybody hear me?
I can hear you.
Awesome. Okay, sorry. I was in the middle of a fucking monologue and then my phone goes off and everything disconnects. But just before we move on, I did want to talk about gray. I do and did agree with the millennial gray thing for a long time, and I still agree with like it shouldn't be everywhere. But something that I've been learning through color theory is how gray interacts with the colors that surround it. And one of the things I wanted to throw in there about like the value, and I've been testing this out, and it really does actually
We'll switch over
work.
here for a second.
Is
I'm
that,
not
and
camera
again,
ready.
if I'm saying this and
These
you all fucking
morning
know this, just
things
bear with
are
me because it's
for
my
me
first
to
time learning
drink
it.
my morning
That
cup
when
of
you put
coffee and
gray
maybe put in my 2
adjacent to
cents.
a color, the eye tricks
I'm
is
still in my
tricking itself
jammies.
into seeing whatever the complement is. So if you put
But
the gray next to the blue,
since I
it
know
is
they're
going
getting
to
ready
try
to
to
be
essentially
done,
level out and balance the
we
color.
will search here.
And to do so, it's going to grab the complement to be able to
For those
mix and
out
match
there
those
on Kick
colors.
that are
So
listening to
when
this and
like
do
I
want
was
to
learning
know,
all this stuff, and he's got all these
if you
swatches
go
of color,
into your
and showing you
stream
how it is,
dashboard,
like
so it's
when you're looking at it, you really can see like, oh shit, it really is looking more like the complement of that color. And so when I'm working with
you'll
things
see
in
a
this
different
limited
dashboard from your
medium,
normal.
at least for what I'm posting, not
So as long
the
as
physical things
you
I'm
are
making, I
following
have to use
the
that gray a
channel,
little bit more, and that was like the thing that I
expand
picked
this
up.
a little bit.
So
As long
we
as you are
talk about
already
like
following
modern
the
furniture
channel,
and modern
down
design,
here,
I was
you
like,
can see
wow,
my
you know what?
mouse.
It really does make a lot of sense why they did that,
Host
because you
channel
could
right
have
there, and
modern
you'll see the
furniture that's
people that
really
I am
bland, really
following
gray, and if
automatically
you
pop
change
up
the paint in
once
the room, it's a
once I
different,
click on one
it
of
will
those
bring out
and hit
different
start a
colors other
host.
than the paint on the
It will
wall.
start
And
it,
once I
and
had
it will
that
bring up
understanding
everybody's
of
chat
that
whether or
little
not they
tiny
want to
teensy bit of
reject
color
it
theory,
or if they
a little
want
bit
to
more
go
of
for it.
design started to showcase in my mind. So
Here
I'm
in
still
just a
exploring
second,
that.
we'll
I
host
still
out
agree,
over
gray
to
shouldn't be
Lou.
everywhere. It should
But
be next
that's
to
the
colors, though.
quick
Anyway,
version of
Schnazzy,
how
before we
that
get
happens.
to
But you do
Mr.
have to
Royko,
be
what do you got?
following the
Yeah, I
channel
wanted to just piggyback off that real quick
before
because
it pops
I
up. It
was learning that
generates
for
in
the
that
first time when
list.
you had learned it
If
last week.
not, you can
And I
also
thought it was
host
really
in the
powerful, and it made me
chat.
start thinking about
If
grays a
you're
little bit
not
differently too.
following
But
them,
another
you
example
can
of me
host in
thinking
the
about
chat
gray a little differently
by, I believe it's
was I had the same mentality where
/host.
I was like,
But I
gross, no, I
have
want to spend my whole life
Kickbot,
with
which
color,
allows me
right?
to do that. So the
Inside of our house,
Kickbot
our
may
last
be
house that we
something that
had, we installed it in
you may want
early this
to
year, and I
check
think like
out if you
April,
want to
May.
do it from the chat, because then
And
you
we
don't
had started
necessarily
renting
have to be
a
following
new
them.
place, and in this new
The
place,
other
every
thing that
single wall was
generates in
gray. And at
there
my
is
old
if
house, I had
you go
painted all the
over
walls. They were
and you just
a
go
dark
into your
blue
regular
or
kick
yellow.
and you're
That was
watching
the two
that,
colors we had in our house. Every wall was either blue or
then
yellow.
if you have a tab
And
open that you
we
are
lived in that house
watching,
for
even if
7
you're
years,
not
and
following
we
them,
had green
they
couches.
will show
I
up
loved
in
doing
your host
turquoise
channel because
rugs
it
and
recognizes
like
what
lots
you're
of wood
watching
grain
at the time
everywhere.
as
And then we
well.
moved into this house, and it
Hopefully
came
that helps you
pre-furnished,
out.
and we're renting it, and it's all gray.
Sorry,
Everything is
Snazzy, sorry
gray
for
or
us.
shades of brown, and it was so
Had a community
stressful
question,
to
had
me
to
at
help the
first. I was like, oh,
community.
it feels like I'm in a hospital.
And
I'm
let me
like
take this back.
waiting at a lawyer's office. Like, this is hard for me to adapt to. But then I started noticing that when I
And
would
we'll head
walk
back over here.
outside, all of a sudden,
But
all
hopefully
of the
that helped.
colors around me were brighter and more
Oh,
vibrant.
you're
And I was like,
welcome.
oh
You're
my
welcome.
God, is this the thing I was supposed to get? Like I'm seeing different shades of green again. Because when I'm inside the house, I'm not as exposed to it as the way that I used to be. And so when I walk outside, the yellows and the greens are so much more vibrant, and I just pay more attention to the colors around me. And it's so weird because I would have never thought about that being something that happens, but it's just like when you're in a space I wouldn't say devoid of color, but it feels really devoid of color, especially from where I was at. Um, God, I appreciate all of the colors when I leave the house now so much more. And it almost seems like I can see more of the color than I used to.
Yeah, and learning about this is really fun. Like I said, I know a lot of y'all probably have a lot of this knowledge already, but if not, try it out. Like, take one little aspect and blow that up for a day, a week. Like, that's what we're doing here with Favism. And I really think it's valuable to take these little, just hold out your trick or treat bag and let us throw some fucking candy in there. And if you don't like, fucking Rolos, or you don't like candy corn, I don't want to talk to you too much if you don't like candy corn, because I love that shit. But now I'm fucking around. I love candy corn. I know
No
a lot of
worries,
people
Rabbit.
don't, and that just means
I
more
can
for
easily
me.
run through it again
But
too. No
even if
problem.
you don't like Favism or Cubism or any of these other things, it's good to know what you don't like, because knowing what you don't like gets you a hell of a lot closer to what you do. And it also helps, like, the perspective is like, oh, okay. But take these little nuggets of color theory, and if you have these nuggets, am thirsting for the knowledge. I am dry and parched for art and knowledge. That is why we are on this journey. I am absolutely starving for more substance. So if you find something or something, tag me in that shit, because I love it. I will eat it up. And before we move on, I do want to hear from Royko. Thank you so much for waiting so patiently. How are you doing? What are your thoughts on Favism, breakthroughs, and expansion?
uh, yeah. Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon. And thank you, Snessie, and Force of Skill. Sorry, for letting me up here again. Yeah. Breakthrough expansion and fascism. Fascism was something that was new for me, the word and the intention. Oh, yeah, go ahead. You have your hand up.
Didn't know Breakman was coming
I
back
think it
on.
might be
We're
glitching.
still
I don't
gonna
see
raid
anybody with
out
their
of
hand up.
here.
You just keep going, Marco.
To
Oh,
probably
okay.
Lou, but I'll be
Forza
going live again pretty
was
quick.
something new.
Just
I
get a
discovered
quick
that
bite
it
to
was
eat and yeah, get out of my pajamas and
a
maybe look
art
presentable.
movement
And
that was started
yeah, I don't know if I ever look
from
presentable.
2000 and onward.
That's debatable. I'll let you guys figure
And
that
I
part
have
out.
to
But
explore a
I
little bit
will be
more
hosting
into it.
out to
Well,
probably
hey,
Lou
but
as soon as this is over,
it is
and you
interesting to
probably
see
won't hear my voice
to see all the
again.
different kind of
For
things
those
mixing in
on
together, and it makes a
Rumble
whole
and YouTube
painting.
and X, if you
From
could go check out the
from an
collections,
airplane
that'd be
and under a
awesome. But I
bridge
will let
or
these
on the
guys
water.
sign things out, and when they say
All
it's
those things.
done,
It,
we
it
will
played on my
be hosting
imagination.
out
That's what
and
it basically
coming
did.
back live probably in about an hour after.
And for the cubism, yeah, I saw it a lot of times also at the Escher Museum here in The Hague. Also other places, and it is also an art movement that started somewhere in 2000. What I was reading about, but it's very interesting to see. And about breakthroughs and expansion. Yeah, the breakthrough for me was basically when I got onto the Discord of G of the community. When I started also streaming with Red Hat, at first I thought, oh shit, what do people think of what I do? And but then afterwards it started to feel okay, and then I was like, yeah, feeling myself and back to to me again, and doing more and more streaming and showing of myself from the Blender part, and later I will do also after Blender the gray builds into the GIMP, and painting that. And it's funny actually. It gives me energy. It gives me pleasure when people are watching or saying, "Oh my God, I never knew that you're really painting your stuff inside three dimensional." And I think, okay, so yeah, it hit me that actually it's something that is not really known when you're are working with a 3D program and you're making stuff. And after that, you put it into GIMP and you make an yeah, basically a 2D um, uh, yeah, cartoonish kind of drawing of it. Like Asset Sin, for example, I have the devil. That asset I put in to the gaming Brody, and yeah, that was cool. Also, that people come on Discord and say from, "Ha, I
Thank you
saw
for
that
being
one.
in,
It's in
Mortal.
there."
I'm glad
I
to
was
have
like,
you
"Oh,
over here.
cool."
Great to have people that I
It
know.
was nice to see. From all
Tell
the assets
Merlin's.
and things.
Yeah.
Wait, I written some stuff down. Oh, but yeah, the shame is not really shame. It's actually in one word. It's actually uh, um, yeah. How do you call that? Uh, that you're a bit scared of showing it from how you're doing, because actually, yeah, it's how I do it. Yeah, people can copy it, and yeah, I feel honored if people would copy it. Um, but yeah, on the other end, the Brodies. That was funny what you were speaking of with Possum. That the Brodies brings the kid back into me. The small one, the playfulness, the cuteness, but that's also the bit of history I saw at a museum of the history of Japan, where the manga art, yeah, basically come from. With the big eyes, the gestures, the way they make it, and yeah, that was cool to see. And that, yeah, I thought from, oh, okay, and I will bring the early asset I made for the Brodies, the Falcon, and I made there was a bit of a development kind of thing. That one I will bring that also into one of the Brody teams. that I have planned, or it's still in my head. I have to bring it to life. So that will come also. But yeah, that's yeah. It's crazy fun to do the live streams, the live things. So when I'm sitting
Yes, it is. It
in a
is. I have a
stream,
lot of fun
Reddit is
with it.
singing. Yeah, it's fun, it's easy, it's relaxed. It gives another flavor to making some stuff. And going back to your youth, from how you perceive things or things you experience in life, like the three variants of the sexiness of between good and evil. I made um, those. Yeah, they basically they are the puber in me. Looking at something, and but also the desert. When I go back to my experiences, when I was reflecting on it, of the desert, of the places I have been, the shapes in my mind, I gave it life like that. There's another way of saying it, and yeah, and that's basically the breakthrough and the expansion. Yeah, that is you guys. That's all of you. Snessy, Force of Kill, G, Samantha, everybody. Bradley, Brad Ed, Mornova. Don't forget Mornova. He
He's
does the
in
things, with real
that
painting,
speaking part
real
where,
things.
please don't forget anybody. Please don't make
Yeah,
anybody mad at me.
CISO. Yeah, I can name you all here. I've seen wonderful
Yeah,
stuff, and it
yeah.
gives me energy and attraction uh, to do something and to repost also your stuff, and I like it when I see it coming by. And yeah, thank you all. That's my expansion. You.
Hey, I really appreciate it, man. Thank you for sharing and thank you for letting us know. And I think definitely do a little bit. So I think there might have been a wire crossed here or there because we're talking about Fauvism. So just look back on some of these things because
Mm-hmm.
this movement was in the early 1900s.
Ah,
Um,
okay. Yeah,
so
thank you.
just double check on that real fast because I really do. I love watching you work,
Hmm.
and you and Breadhead building these things from scratch. Both of you are doing similar things, but entirely different. And I really love watching that. And I think it's if you are interested and you've got something, you've got time to kill, and you want to spend time with some good dudes making some great art, definitely go
Hmm.
ahead and follow through Royco. Check him out. Check out Breadhead. Check out these other creators in the space. Give them all a
Hmm.
follow. These are your contemporaries. These are people who are striving to get better. And share that stuff. When people are making something that you like, do not be afraid to share it. And before we let it go, thank you, Royco, so much. I appreciate it. Tricky's got his hand up. We're gonna hear from him, and then we're gonna sign it off. So, Tricky, what did you have? What came to mind?
Well, it's actually the breakthroughs and expansions because Royko was talking about 3D art. Now, I can't stand Blender as far as a working program. It's always just turned my mind into gel. But for those who wanted to maybe dive into the 3D arts and the 3D modeling, if you are already using Procreate, they have an awesome 3D model pack. It's actually where my guitars that are going on AVAX and where the roller tricks, the Procreate model that is free for everybody on Procreate. You can download their model pack and it has the roller skate if you want to start making your own roller tricks. Hey, I mean, I'm trying to build that market, but you guys do your own thing because it is free for models. But what that has been my breakthrough and expansion. That has been where I've seen a niche in a market where AI 2D drawings, things are kind of leaking in, but 3D models where you have to turn the perspective and you can still design by hand as you're going, and you can create the whole piece from the bearings to splashing. Even when we take it into context with Fauvism, make a bright pink with a lime green roller skate or a guitar. They have surfboards, vases. if you really do want to kind of stretch into that 3D and see how that experience of drawing on a 3D plane is, Procreate does have an awesome model pack, and it has that part has definitely been a breakthrough and expansion. And that's, I just wanted to add that. Thank you for bringing that up, Royko.
Yeah, Royko, thank you so much, Tricky. And if you do have that in Procreate, you want to play around, absolutely play around with that, and show it out. Royko, what's your comment? And then we're gonna throw it to Schnazzy as soon as you're done, and we're gonna close it out.
Yeah, just want to say thank you, Tricky, for pointing that out from Blender and everything. But the package you're talking of is also very great. I've seen it. I've dived into it. But I have to for me personally, when I want more, then it needs to be there. That's why I use it, and I understand that everybody gets lost in Blender because there's just too many options. But my advice for Blender basically is stick to your plan and don't get off it, because all those things are basically different occupations. So if you're good in sculpting, stay to sculpting. If you're good in making lights and other objects and animation, stay to that.
I think that that's, yeah, I think that that's really valuable, especially for people who are looking to streamline. But I do also think it's really valuable to experiment and play around, because you might like something and then find out you actually liked an element of that that is more showcased in a different art form and a different avenue. So I'll counter that a little bit, and I'll say that I think it's good to experiment too. But yeah, if you want to streamline it, that has Abro says, and you want to streamline that line of success, being able to stick to one thing and get really good at it and know it from every single angle and mastering it, it's that's going to work. And you're absolutely right. And I think there's a lot of these amazing conversations that we've had even in this call today that are something that we could play back and listen to and relearn from a different lens each and every time we add some of the perspectives we were able to hear up here today. And I think that's one of the best parts about having these spaces. And we're talking about breakthroughs. I mean, in this call alone, I feel like I've connected the dots for a lot of different elements, from like how something that I'm struggling with in my mental is really showcasing itself and how I'm struggling with sharing my art, to even understanding like colors when they are on a brightness scale, like that gray scale we were talking about, and really utilizing that in more every day, just like how we were talking about seeing more colors when you're only exposed to the grayscale for a long time makes you appreciate those light colors. Seeing these bright colors in Fauvism is actually kind of, I feel that anchor that Abro was suggesting for us to really pay attention to when we had the Cubism week last week. He wanted to do the opposite, as he called it, this week with the Fauvism. And now I see why they're actually opposites. So at first I was like, oh, these are so similar, just in like the fundamentals of breaking those fundamentals, right? But it is the complementary nature to it. It's the yin to his yang. And I think that that's really, I think a breakthrough that I'm having right now. And I think that there's a bit of an expansion process that we're all kind of tapping into and aiding together. And, I think these space calls and these conversations inside of them are evidence of it. And, what a scholarly thing. So I'm really enjoying the way that things are growing, and I'm really appreciating everybody's ability to come up and still have these conversations, still have the love and the passion for learning through this. And I'm just grateful for you guys, and I hope that as we finish out Fauvism week, because we only have 2 days left, I hope that you're playing in Fauvism at least a little bit, or maybe you've got some inspirations for how to use colors, or maybe you want to play around with the color mapping through the gradient map. I really hope that it's doing some good for you guys, because it's doing a lot for us, and I love reading the comments afterwards. So leave us your thoughts and your feedback. And I wanted to know, Forrest, if you wanted to go ahead and tease next week's topic, because it's a little different.
No, we're not doing that yet. No, abso-fucking-lutely not. It will derail the whole thing. I just got into fucking Favism. I had to remove myself from suckling from the teat of cubism. I was just getting the good stuff, and now I'm on to Favism, and now you want me to switch over. No, next week's going to be fantastic. I think a lot of people in the community already have a deep-seated love for this thing. I do not want to derail it. We will talk about that on Friday when we do our
Oh,
Friday's Finest.
shit.
Again, you do not have to participate, but every fucking person that does is doing a phenomenal job, and they are pushing it forward. Post that shit, tag us in it so that we can talk about it on Friday's Finest. And when we do that Friday's Finest, you come up, we'll do that. We'll do exactly what we've been doing previously on those, and we'll let you guys come up and talk about it. And we definitely want to hear from the people who've done these Favis pieces. Thank you so much, Tricky, for coming up and talking about that and your experience. And I definitely want to talk about mine as well, about how the mentality shifted and how I'm kind of growing and learning, and tell you guys the effect that you have had on me. But we will save that next juicy morsel of meat for Friday so that we can talk about it, because I'm really excited to see what everybody does with Favism. I'm excited to continue working on it. I really want to thank each and every single one of you for showing up and showing out and coming up here and talking, sharing your experiences, sharing your thoughts, even the thoughts that other people might disagree with. That is exactly what the Academy is supposed to be. That's exactly what's supposed to happen in the studio. You're supposed to be able to throw that shit on the wall and see what fucking sticks. So please go out there and do it. Please make some fucking art. Share that shit with the world. Continue learning, continue growing, and we'll see you tomorrow at 11
Force is really
a.m.
starting to
EST.
grow on me. I
And
like that,
I'm gonna
dude.
shameless plug my thing. I have on my Humanities Club that I do at 9 p.m. We are doing the Allegory of the Cave from Plato. So if you are interested in that, I'm going to read it. So you don't have to read anything. Go to my page.
The Allegory
show
of the
up,
Cave.
And just listen and come and talk about it.
That
because
could
it
be
is
very
one of those
interesting. If
fundamental
you do not know what
concepts
the
that
Allegory of the
really does
Cave
translate
is,
to art. So please
do
show up.
people
if you have
inside the
opportunity,
cave
if you
watching
can,
the
set
shadows,
that reminder,
are they
and
really
if not,
living?
I
Is
still love you, and
what's
we will
going
see you
on
tomorrow
behind
at
them?
11
Plato was a
a.m.
smart
EST.
ass
Have a
man.
great and creative day.
I had to give him a little shill there too. I actually talked over him. But it looks like that's done. Plato and the Cave. Well, I just got invited to the book club, and I read the first 2 pages, but I do know a lot about Plato and the Cave. So maybe we'll just maybe we'll make a whole day of this. For right now, though, so I can get some breakfast, and maybe you guys are gonna go watch Consumer or listen to Consumer. I will be doing that as well. But I will see you guys live again in probably, let's say, about an hour, hour and a half. Until then, on Kick, I'm going to send you over to our friend Nashville Lou. I'm going to start that right now. For the people that so graciously watched on X, Rumble, and YouTube, if you didn't know, buy things. I'm a digital artist, physical artist in general, and yeah, you can check out the collection there.
4 cards for the next round.
On the screen. Do those things.
Minute
At
3
least
by
go
Jimmy
check them
Z
out.
with a 6
Tell me what you think.
showing.